The section that we're going to look at today will come from the administration manual for paper testing, and this is for accommodations and English learner supports. On page 4, testing with accessibility supports. Types of accessibility supports. Accessibility supports permitted during testing are designed to remove barriers to examinee access to the test and honor the content the test measure. It is important to abide by all outline requirements for administering supports. The types of accessibility supports. There are universal supports, designated supports, English learner supports, and accommodations. Universal supports. Universal supports are available to all examinees based on examinee preference. For paper testing, universal supports are approved by the test accommodations coordinator. Examples of universal supports include, but are not limited to, left-handed desk, pencil, grip. Designated supports. Designated supports are available to any examinee for whom a need has been identified and are approved by the test accommodations coordinator. Most require advanced planning to deliver. Examples of designated supports include, but are not limited to, testing in a small group or one-to-one, food, drink, or access to medication for examinees with medical needs, a written copy of the verbal instructions which are provided locally, examinees marking responses in the test booklet. The test accommodations coordinator must arrange to transfer the responses to the answer document in the examinee's presence after testing. Failure to do so will result in scores not being reported. Using colored overlays, using a magnification device on paper, non-electronic. English learner supports. English learner (EL) supports are available only for examinees who are not proficient in English. EL supports must be authorized by ACT prior to use. Examinees with EL supports must use the designated accommodations test materials. EL supports are limited to the following: ACT authorized word-to-word bilingual dictionary glossary, translated written test directions which are provided by ACT, 1 1/2 time, and small group testing. All right, so we're on page 5, accommodations. Accommodations are available only for examinees when documented in an IEP or 504 plan and are authorized in advance by ACT. These accommodations must be used regularly in the academic environment and should not be introduced just prior to taking the ACT. Examinees with ACT authorized accommodations must use the designated accommodations test materials. Accommodation test booklets have a circled symbol on the cover. Examinees with the same testing times should test together as a group unless an accommodation requires one-to-one testing. Examples of accommodations include, but are not limited to, time scheduling supports such as extra testing time, testing over multiple days, breaks as needed. Audio supports such as pre-recorded audio, human reader using a reader script, text to speech. Written supports such as scribe to record responses, speech to text software for the writing test, which we don't do. The writing test, that is. Signing exact English for the entire test, and alternate formats such as Braille or large print. Qualification for accessibility supports. Authorization. For the ACT test, the Test Accommodations Coordinator, TAC, identifies and authorizes the use of universal supports and designated supports. The TAC identifies and requests authorization for examinees to test with accommodations based on their individualized education plan, IEP or 504 plan. EL supports based on limited English proficiency. All right, we're going to look at administration details. So the following table includes timing, codes, and guidelines. Each examinee has an authorized timing. This determines which verbal instructions must be read to that examinee. To schedule testing for an examinee, refer to the accommodations and support roster, which lists each examinee's authorized timing and accommodations materials kit. To see which test timings apply to each timing code, see the chart below. So timing code 1 would be standard time. Timing code 2 would be double time over multiple days. Timing code 3, triple time over multiple days. And timing code 5, so you got to make sure you're looking at the right one. There are 2 of them. Timing code 5 for some may be standard time over multiple days. And then there's timing code 5, which may be listed as breaks as needed. So remember, breaks as needed, you cannot exceed more than 90 minutes of total breaks for all 4 tests. Timing code 6, which is 1 1/2 time, which are usually your EL students. So you'll notice your EL students are listed as, for the most part, are listed as 1 1/2 time. That's single day. Keep in mind, 1 1/2 time is single day. Timing code 7 is the one that's over multiple days, 1 1/2 time over multiple days. We don't do timing code 8 because we don't have that writing section. So make sure you use the accommodations and support roster in PA Next to help you determine which timing codes the students with accommodations have. All right, and on page 6, there's more description about that table. So notice multiple day testing, which would be timing codes 2, 3, and 5 multiple day testing, and timing code 7 will occur over several days of the accommodations testing window. However, each test must be completed during a single session. The days do not have to be consecutive. Single day testing would be timing codes 1, timing code 5, breaks as needed, timing code 6, and timing code 8. And remember, timing code 8 we don't do because that's the writing part. Occurs all in one day, and all tests must be completed in a single session. All examinees in the room must have the same authorized timing. Examinees testing with accommodations may not test in a room with examinees who are not using accommodation materials or who have different authorized timing. If they do, tests from that room will not be scored and scores will be canceled. If you are administering ACT no writing, so we're going to go ahead and skip that part. So I'm not reading that part. So let's go to important. When testing with accessibility supports, examinees may use less time than allowed with the authorized timing. But, this is important, do not move to the next test. So for example, test 2, until standard time has expired and all examinees in the room have completed the test section or the allotted time has expired. All right, so make sure you understand that part that's in bold. Timing chart. Let's look at the timing chart. So the timing chart indicates the timing code, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and there's 8 as well. The authorized timing, so there's a description about it, and the allotted times for each test. So you have test 1 and the allotted times for each of those timing codes. You have test 2 and the allotted time for each of those timing codes. Test 3 and test 4. Okay, I'm not going to mention the last column because we don't do that. So, but that is timing, the timing allowed for writing. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit more about timing code 3. All right, because on the for the first test, English, there are 2 times here. So notice for timing code 3, which is triple time over multiple days, for the English test, which is the first test, it says 135 minutes or 180 minutes, and it says see note. So let's go ahead to that note. And here's that note. So the first bullet, for test 1, which is English, using triple time, examinees are allowed up to 180 minutes if using pre-recorded audio, a reader, or Braille. All right. So for the English test, if the students have a pre-recorded audio, they use 180 minutes. So it's important that the room supervisor understands that they must be allotted 180 minutes and not 135. The second bullet says when providing breaks as needed, which is timing code 5, right? Timing code 5, breaks as needed. Total break time cannot exceed 90 minutes. All right, so we're now on page 7. Testing more than one examinee at a time. ACT encourages group administrations for examinees authorized for the same timing and similar accommodations and or supports. If more than 20 examinees will test in one room, a proctor is required to assist with the administration. If you are testing groups of examinees using a pre-recorded audio, ACT recommends a proctor assist with the administration. So remember, in Louisiana, if a student has small group on their IEP, that student must be testing in a group with 8 or fewer students. No more than 8 students in that testing room. All right. Next paragraph. All examinees in the room must have the same authorized timing and must be working on the same test at the same time. For example, when administering test 1, all examinees must be working on test 1. Testing with interpreters, readers, and scribes. Examinees may be authorized to test with an interpreter, a reader, or scribe. So there are descriptions for the interpreter, descriptions for the reader, and description for the scribe. For interpreter, an interpreter may sign verbal instructions if this is authorized by the test coordinator. Sign systems include American Sign Language, Signing Exact English, Conceptually Accurate Signed English, and Cued Speech. This does not need to be a one-to-one administration. An interpreter may sign test items if this is authorized by ACT. Sign systems include Sign Exact English or Cued Speech following the reader's script. No other sign systems are allowed for test items. This must be a one-to-one administration. Reader. A reader may read the test to a single examinee authorized for oral presentation of the test with triple time over multiple days. Readers may not read tests to a group. Scribe. A scribe may be authorized for examinees who are unable to mark multiple choice answers on their answer document or unable to write the essay for the writing test. During the test, the examinee dictates answers to a scribe who grids responses and or writes the essay. The examinee must be tested one-to-one. And there's a part on the writing test, which I'm not going to talk about because we're not going to do the writing test. All right, testing with pre-recorded audio, which most of you will have. Examinees authorized for pre-recorded audio may test as a group if they have their own headphones, can control the progress of their own device, and are all working on the same test at the same time, such as when administering test 1, all examinees in the room must be working on test 1. Examinees are able to replay any portion of any test as needed within the time allowed for each test. Each examinee will also receive a regular or large print test booklet to follow along. You will receive usage guidelines and USBs with each pre-recorded audio kit. Read these guidelines, remove the USBs from the shrink wrap kits to test that the audio works, and consult with your technical support staff before the first scheduled test date. If the audio does not work, contact ACT for a replacement. So it's important that you do this. You must not wait until the day of the test to determine whether this audio works or not. The next one, conduct a practice session with examinees by ordering practice materials using the ACT alternate format practice test order form. And there's the address to get that form. ACT will not reimburse you for software purchases. Note, if you have a technical issue on test day with pre-recorded audio, stop testing and refer to the USB troubleshooting tips found on your ACT-hosted state or district testing webpage under administration. If this troubleshooting does not work, do not proceed until you receive instructions from ACT. Now, normally, if you recall, when you do get that USB port, the troubleshooting tips are found in the pages that are in that shrink wrap package. But let me show you on the state website where that's located. I actually went into the Canvas course and I put it there. So you're going to go to the Canvas course and you see where it says paper testing information. So if I go there, here's the USB troubleshooting. So if you click on this, it will actually bring you to ACT where you'll see information about the USB drive. So open a test from a USB drive, troubleshooting right here, and then it says if the start here files opens in a text box and then the directions. If the USB drive isn't recognized, this is what they tell you to do. Restart the Chromebook and so on. If you're still experiencing problems, then it says try other USB connections. And that's as far as it goes down, but here's the phone number to call if you need to, and there's the extension. Okay, so that's where the information on USB troubleshooting directions are, but it's very important that you check this before test day. And we'll discuss this when you come to pick up your materials for paper testing if you do have USB pre-recorded audio. Okay, so on page 8, there's a section on testing with Braille writer or speech-to-text software. We don't do the writing part, so we're going to skip all of this. Now, at the bottom of page 8, examinees who decline their authorized accommodations, EL supports. Usually, in almost all cases, examinees do not decline their authorized accommodations or EL supports, but if they do, this is what you have to do. All right, so examinees may choose not to use their authorized accommodations and or English learner supports. Examinees who choose to test without their authorized accommodations and or EL supports must test in a standard time test room using standard test materials. If testing has not started and space is available in a standard room, you may move the examinee to a standard room and have the examinee use standard test materials. Be sure to add the examinee to the seating diagram and roster. If space is not available in a standard room or if testing is underway, inform the examinee. If the examinee chooses not to test, complete an irregularity report and then dismiss the examinee. Note, write on the irregularity report that the examinee declined accommodation supports and was transferred to a standard room or dismissed, and have the examinee sign the report. Return the report with the unused accommodated test materials. This is important. If the examinee does not want their accommodations and you transfer that student, and you have to transfer the student to standard time, You must do an irregularity report, and the student, here's where it says this, and have the examinee sign the report. Next part right here. Schedule the examinee for the next standard time test date if that is an option. If the examinee chooses to test with the authorized accommodation supports after all, provide the authorized accommodation supports as planned. All right, so that will conclude this section on testing with accessibility supports, and this is from the paper the administration manual for paper testing, not online testing. This was for paper testing.